Welcome to Easy English, your go-to channel for improving your English and life.
In a world that's constantly, broadcasting the message to be always on, always visible, always hustling,
Yeah.
what if the most strategic, maybe even revolutionary thing you could do is actually step away?
It really goes against the grain, doesn't it? There's this deep-seated belief that being present means you're making progress, that if you're not constantly visible, you're somehow falling behind.
Right.
But the core idea we've been looking at in these writings is that intentionally disappearing. Well, it isn't about quitting or failing. It's actually a profound act of power.
Absolutely. It's framed totally differently, not as an ending, but as a deliberate withdrawal with purpose. The whole point is to return transformed, stronger, clearer.
Mm-hmm.
I keep thinking about that image of the caterpillar going into its cocoon. It's completely hidden, isolated, going through this incredible internal shift before emerging as something totally new. It's such a powerful metaphor for this.
That quiet, solitary period,
Hmm.
that's where the real change, the metamorphosis, happens. It's not about shrinking away. It's about focusing your energy inward, getting ready for future expansion.
So our aim in this conversation is really to explore why taking this time away, stepping back from all the constant demands and noise, isn't just some luxury or like a last resort. It's actually essential. We're drawing on insights from various perspectives that really lay out the compelling mental, emotional, even strategic advantages.
Yeah, it's about shifting how we see a pause. It's not being static or losing ground. It's actually a dynamic phase, one that's crucial for significant personal growth and strategic repositioning.
Okay, so let's dive into this core idea then, taking a step back. The material is really clear on this.
Mm.
This isn't surrender. It's definitely not admitting defeat.
That distinction is absolutely vital. It's presented much more as a sophisticated tactical move. Think of it like initiating a personal reset sequence.
A personal reset. I like that phrase. It captures it well.
Mm.
And when you look at modern life, well, it makes perfect sense why this pause becomes necessary sometimes. You hit these points where you just feel completely overwhelmed or totally unmotivated, maybe just adrift,
Yeah.
disconnected from what actually matters to you.
And the standard advice is often just push harder, grind through it. But the argument here is that path just leads straight to burnout, eventually breakdown. Taking an intentional break, even if it feels uncomfortable at first, gives your mind and body the space they actually need to heal and recalibrate properly, not just surface level rest.
It reminds me of that parallel they draw with elite athletes.
Yeah.
They get it.
Yeah.
They know peak performance doesn't come from just pushing constantly. They schedule intense training, yes, but also dedicated recovery.
Exactly.
And that recovery time isn't wasted time. It's absolutely critical. It's where the body repairs, strategy gets tweaked, the mental game resets. Our lives, well, they need that same kind of intelligent rhythm.
Precisely. And when you apply that same thinking to your own life, personally or professionally, stepping back stops being a luxury. It offers really concrete benefits. Fundamentally, it's about protecting your energy, which, let's face it, in today's world, that's probably your most valuable currency, and it's constantly under attack.
And it gives you perspective. Perspective you just cannot get when you're stuck right in the middle of the chaos. You know that saying, when you're too close to the painting, all you see are the brush strokes. Stepping back lets you see the whole picture.
It creates space to evolve. That's huge. If you're constantly just reacting to everything coming at you, there's no internal bandwidth left to actually process, adapt, and genuinely change or grow.
And maybe most importantly, it lets you regain control. Control over your time, your focus, pulling that attention away from all the endless demands of the outside world and pointing it inward, or maybe towards what you decide truly matters. It's like proactively reclaiming your agency over your own life and development.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, let's explore the psychology and the strategy that are kind of woven into this idea of withdrawal. There's a really important point made about the difference between choosing solitude intentionally versus just feeling lonely or isolated.
That's a subtle difference, but it feels critical. Loneliness often feels involuntary, negative, isolating. But intentional solitude, that's a conscious choice, isn't it? To step away from the constant external demands, people, projects, platforms for a specific reason. What actually happens in our brains when we do that?
Well, when you deliberately disengage from those focused external tasks, your brain activity literally shifts. It moves into what scientists call the default mode network, or DMN.
Ah, the DMN.
Yeah.
That's where the good stuff often happens, isn't it? That's the brain state linked with self-reflection, consolidating memories, creative thinking, and those sudden moments you get, like in the shower or something.
Exactly. It gets activated when your mind isn't busy directing itself outward, solving problems or reacting. And the research discussed in these pieces shows that deliberately engaging this state through intentional solitude actually helps reduce chronic stress. It can sharpen your overall focus when you do re-engage and significantly improves your emotional regulation. So you move from being constantly reactive to having the space for more thoughtful responses.
And doesn't just removing yourself from environments that might be toxic or draining or even just plain confusing, doesn't that also create the space you need for your true self, your own identity, to start speaking up again? So you can actually hear what you want once you strip away all the layers of other people's expectations. That kind of clarity seems almost impossible to find in constant noise.
It really is. And think about it strategically too, not just psychologically. The material makes a comparison to businesses that might temporarily go dark or pull back from the public eye during a major restructuring. They aren't failing. They're using that protected time to rebuild their internal systems, refine their vision, and get ready for a stronger comeback.
You can totally apply that to your personal life. Use that time away to consciously, maybe surgically, cut ties with habits or influences that are toxic or just aren't serving you anymore. Rebuild your daily routines from scratch, designing a structure that actually supports your energy and your goals. And set boundaries, not just limits on others, but clear rules for yourself too, that line up with the person you're actively trying to become.
And the real power there is that when you eventually re-engage after that kind of strategic recalibration, you're not starting over from square one. You're operating from a fundamentally different place. You're grounded in that recentered experience, you have clearer insights, and a much stronger sense of purpose.
Which brings us right to the crucial role of boundaries in this whole thing. Taking time away almost forces you to see where your boundaries are weak or maybe non-existent. And then it gives you the strength and perspective to reinforce them, doesn't it?
Absolutely. When you're perpetually available, always on, it's just incredibly easy to default to saying yes to everything and everyone asking for a piece of your time or energy. Stepping away forces a necessary evaluation. Who and what truly deserves access to you, to your energy, your attention?
It essentially acts like a rigorous filtering period. You evaluate relationships, you prioritize your own needs and goals without that constant external pressure, and fundamentally, you build stronger self-respect just by honoring your own limits for a change.
And the powerful outcome of that filtering process is you gain this crystal clear understanding of what to enthusiastically say yes to when you return, and maybe even more liberating, what you can confidently say no to without that familiar knot of guilt.
Taking that step back also seems to open up this really profound space for emotional healing. The idea of intentional alone time being a period to actually confront pain, process difficult emotions, maybe even unlearn some toxic patterns. That feels incredibly important.
Yeah, the concept of silence itself being therapeutic comes up again and again. I mean, in our world that's just saturated with notifications, pings, constant input, actual silence can feel really uncomfortable, almost alien at first. But embracing it lets your nervous system downregulate. That relentless mental chatter finally starts to quiet down, making space for deeper processing.
And the documented mental health benefits are pretty compelling. Consistently having periods of silence can lower cortisol levels.
Yeah.
The main stress hormone. It can boost your ability to process complex emotions without feeling overwhelmed, enhance creativity and problem solving, and generally just foster a greater sense of peace and mindfulness. It's in that quiet you finally hear the thoughts that really matter, right? The ones about what's genuinely hurting you or holding you back that just get drowned out otherwise.
And one of the most potentially transformative parts mentioned is shedding emotional baggage. We all carry these invisible burdens, regret, resentment, unresolved grief, shame, things that really weigh us down. But when you're always in go mode, there's just no protected space, no pause button to actually deal with them.
Solitude gives you that necessary permission and maybe the container to just feel whatever comes up, to process it authentically without the pressure of having to perform or put on a brave face for anyone else.
And letting go, well, it isn't about pretending the pain or the difficult experience didn't happen. It's more about fully acknowledging it, maybe even honoring the role it played in shaping you, but then consciously choosing not to keep carrying it forward. It's like a deliberate act of emotional decluttering. It frees up so much energy.
And in that stillness, the space that emotional decluttering creates, you can start to rediscover a sense of inner peace. The way it's described is powerful. It's about reconnecting with the present moment and finding acceptance in just being.
Yeah, acceptance that lets you look at yourself, your situation, your past, and say, okay, this is where I am right now. I'm not fundamentally broken. I'm rebuilding.
That shift in mindset is so foundational for mental resilience. It really solidifies the understanding that your inherent worth isn't tied to your productivity or your achievements or how popular you are. It just is. And nature seems to play a really big role in this kind of emotional restoration for a lot of people. Just stepping outside, whether it's a walk in the woods, sitting by the water, even just feeling the sun on your face. It acts as this natural therapeutic environment. Research shows it improves mood, reduces anxiety, increases emotional awareness.
Nature provides this gentle mirroring of life's own cycles too, doesn't it? Seasons change, storms pass, new growth emerges even after tough times. It's like this quiet, constant reminder that healing and transformation are actually deeply natural processes.
And those emotional boundaries we touched on earlier, they become especially vital during this healing phase, right? Taking time away can really highlight who respects your limits and maybe who's been benefiting from your constant accessibility and emotional labor.
Absolutely. Learning to fiercely protect your emotional energy, it's like safeguarding a precious currency. And this means setting practical filters, not necessarily building impenetrable walls, but filters. It might look like consciously limiting certain online interactions or declining conversations you know will be draining, or just practicing saying no without feeling you owe this huge explanation.
So when you eventually emerge from this period, you're not just strategically sharper or mentally clearer, you're also more emotionally intelligent, more grounded in your own well-being because you've done that essential internal work.
And this flows perfectly into another major outcome of intentionally stepping away, gaining real clarity and starting that process of rebuilding your identity. Clarity is often described as maybe one of the greatest gifts of disappearing for a while.
Yes. Finally, being able to hear the distinct sound of your own voice, your own intuition, without all the external chatter muddying the waters. Isolation, used this way, acts like a mirror, doesn't it? Reflecting back truths about yourself and your path that you were simply too distracted to see before.
Though it's really crucial here to distinguish between constructive reflection and destructive rumination. Reflection, which is what intentional solitude supports, involves asking purposeful questions. What can I learn from this? What patterns need breaking? What truly matters to me going forward? Rumination, on the other hand, is just looping endlessly through past failures, fears, shame, and solitude without some tools can sometimes tip into that if you're not careful.
Right, that makes sense. And that's where tools like journaling and meditation become so incredibly effective. They provide structure, maybe some guidance, to turn that solitude into genuine self-discovery instead of just getting lost in your own head.
Exactly. Journaling, for instance, lets you capture those fleeting thoughts. You can explore prompts like what's currently draining my energy or what does my desired future self actually look, feel, and act like. Practicing gratitude journaling can actively shift your perspective too. And rereading older entries, that gives you tangible proof of how far you've come. And meditation, even starting small, like 5-10 minutes focusing on your breath or a simple mantra, it calms the nervous system and sharpens your ability to tell the difference between that quiet, inner intuitive voice and all the loud external noise.
Because that inner voice, your gut feeling, your instinct, that's supposed to be your most trusted guide, right? But it just gets buried under the weight of everyone else's opinions, societal expectations, endless advice. This quiet time feels absolutely essential for recalibrating and learning to trust that inner compass again.
And clarity, according to the thinking here, really emerges most strongly when you start trusting that internal guidance instead of constantly looking outside for validation or permission for your choices. It's really empowering to realize, okay, maybe that path I was on wasn't truly aligned with me, and that's okay. Growth often requires a course correction.
This intentional space is also perfect for decluttering your mental landscape. That means actively cleaning up that internal dialogue. Those often harsh, self-critical thoughts running on repeat. Replacing that self-criticism with active self-compassion and letting go of limiting beliefs, like that pervasive, I'm not good enough narrative.
That kind of mental cleanup frees up just enormous amounts of cognitive and emotional energy that were tangled up in internal conflict. And suddenly, decisions feel easier. You can pursue your goals with more focus. You can navigate relationships with a clearer sense of your own value.
As that mental space clears, it creates room to visualize your next chapter. This isn't just passive daydreaming. It's framed as really important mental training. You actively picture your ideal future self. What are they doing? How are they making decisions? Writing this down, mapping out even just the first few steps makes it feel real. Isolation gives you that permission and protected space to dream boldly, not just about getting by, but about actually thriving.
Which flows so naturally into the idea of actively rebuilding your identity and your confidence during this time away. This period is about redefining yourself, not based on external labels or how others have seen you in the past, but based on who you are genuinely becoming right now, in the present.
It really is like a chance to step onto a blank slate and just explore, free from old expectations. Questions to ask yourself might be, what roles am I ready to consciously let go of? Who am I authentically when nobody else is around? What kind of energy do I want to attract moving forward? What kind of life actually excites me at my core? Reinvention in this context isn't about being fake, it's just natural evolution.
And yeah, sometimes this internal transformation will lead to visible external changes, maybe in your style, your habits, even the friendships you choose to nurture. And if someone says, wow, you've changed, when you reemerge, the material suggests taking that as a huge compliment. It means your internal growth is actually noticeable on the outside.
But the most powerful part of this rebuilding is definitely the internal transformation. That's where things like affirmations and deep inner work really come into play. Consistently using powerful affirmations like I am who I choose to become helps reprogram your subconscious mind over time.
And this inner work also includes things like practicing self-forgiveness, maybe using techniques like mirror work, actively challenging those deeply ingrained limiting beliefs that have held you back for so long. The combination of dedicated solitude and focused inner work builds the strong, resilient self-concept where your confidence is rooted internally. You just don't need constant external validation to feel worthy or capable anymore.
Part of that rebuilding is also about taking ownership of your story, isn't it? Recognizing that your low points aren't signs of weakness, but actually proof of your inherent power and resilience. Your period of silence wasn't hiding. It was strategic preparation. Your absence wasn't shrinking. It was a necessary rebirth. And your return, that's a powerful, lived strategy. Reclaiming that narrative for yourself, that can be incredibly empowering. Not just for you, but it might even inspire others around you.
And the kind of confidence that grows out of this work, it's grounded in authenticity, not pretense. Real confidence comes from being genuinely real about who you are, where you've been, what you're about now. That kind of authenticity just naturally attracts trust and respect from others. You can see it in how someone carries themselves, how they speak, the clarity in their decisions.
And finally, building this confidence isn't usually one big leap, right? It's built in layers, especially during that quiet time away. Celebrating the small wins, maybe just managing to get out of bed on a really tough day, or successfully saying no to one draining request, or completing one small activity you set out to do. These little acts of honoring your own needs, they stack up. Each small act of self-respect builds into solid self-esteem.
Exactly. Leading to a confidence that isn't necessarily loud or flashy or needing to be the center of attention. It's deep, it's quiet, it's unshakable because it's built on that solid foundation of knowing yourself and trusting your own worth, completely independent of external circumstances.
So to kind of bring this conversation to a close, the core message feels incredibly clear and actually quite powerful.
Yeah.
Disappearing with purpose and then coming back stronger, it isn't primarily an external action. It's a really profound internal movement. It's about consciously stepping away from what drains your energy, your focus, your spirit, and deliberately stepping into a space and a mindset that truly empowers you.
It really reinforces that idea that silence can be sacred, that intentional solitude is a genuine source of strength, and that these periods of personal rebirth are absolutely vital cycles if we want to live a full and meaningful life.
And in a world that just constantly screams for more visibility, more productivity, more connection, this makes a really compelling case for maybe embracing less, less external noise, less pressure to constantly perform, less needing to prove your value all the time.
And when you do return, the suggestion isn't really to lead with big explanations or justifications for where you've been or what you've done. It's much more about simply being the upgraded version, being more focused, maybe noticeably calmer, perhaps a little bolder in your choices. Letting your presence and how you navigate the world be the living proof of what that intentional time away managed to create.
It's a really compelling perspective, especially if you, listening, have been feeling that sort of pervasive tiredness or overwhelm or maybe just disconnection lately. What if you actually dared to give yourself that intentional, quiet space?
What might you truly discover about yourself, about your desires, your strengths in that stillness? What could you fundamentally rebuild or redefine about your life? And well, what might your eventual return look like?
Definitely something worth sitting with and considering. Thanks for joining us for this exploration today.